moment, which is very special, as we discuss the work of one of our very own, Dr. Amrita Ghosh. When I was in grad school, I had a roommate who was also one of my best friends, from Kashmir, who introduced me to a poem by Aga Shahid Ali called A Country Without a Post Office. And I'm gonna read a couple of lines from that poem. I read them, letters of lovers, the mad ones, and mine to him, from whom no answers came. These lines capture the agony and pain of the dire consequences of violence unleashed in Kashmir from late 1980s, reaching its crescendo in early 1990s, and continues in some form, though subdued to this day. The violence was triggered by first the internal turmoil in Indian Kashmir after a botched up election, and later transformed into a full-blown counter-insurgency, cross-border insurgency. We can pick any sides to the conflict, right? Conflicts are polarizing. However, an academic's calling and job is to explore the causes and consequences of these conflicts through multiple lenses. India Center is an incubator of ideas, education, and research on India warmly welcomes multiple perspectives on one of India's most tragic and consequential conflict zones. I think Dr. Amrita's book titled Kashmir's Necropolis, Literary, Culture, and Visual Texts is a wonderful addition to our knowledge of the conflict from a literary and cultural lens, and captures how one can investigate and explore the tragedy of Kashmir conflict in the daily discourses of human existence. Dr. Ghosh's work is not only an academic rendition, which gives an intimate tour of the nature and consequences of violence in a conflict zone, which, as Amrita argues, is not just physical, but manifests itself in multiple forms, some of which she has dexterously explored and presented in this book. The logic of why states engage in and perpetrate violence is a realm of discussion and debate. But we must understand that violence can only be healed through justice and acknowledgement. I think Amrita's work is not only an academic contribution, but insofar it acknowledges and represents the excesses of Kashmir conflict, also a step forward to justice and healing. We at India Center congratulate Dr. Amrita Ghosh on this stellar academic achievement, and we look forward to many more books and book discussions in the future. More power to you and your words, Amrita. Lala, our Director of Public Affairs, will now make the formal introductions. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi. Dr. Joshi is the India Center's director, new endowed chair, so we're very excited to have him. But I am very pleased to be introducing Dr. Amrita Ghosh. Dr. Ghosh is an assistant professor of South Asian literatures at UCF's Department of English. She is also a faculty affiliate at the India Center, so we are very lucky to have her. She's been a great support ever since she came to UCF. Dr. Ghosh has co-written a book titled India's Imperial Formations, Cultural Perspectives, and it'll come out in early 2025. She's also the co-editor of Refiguring Global Challenges, Literary and Cinematic Explorations of War, Inequality, and Migration, and also Tagore and Yeats, a post-colonial re-envisioning. Today, Dr. Ghosh will be speaking about her most recent book, Kashmir's Necropolis, New Literature and Visual Text, published in 2024. I would now like to welcome Dr. Amrita Ghosh, who will present her talk on Kashmir's Necropolis. Following her talk, there will be an opportunity for Q&A. So please help me in welcoming Dr. Ghosh.
Thank you everybody for joining here today. I'm extremely grateful and thankful for those really grand introductions. I don't know if I deserve them, but thank you. Special thanks to the India Center for organizing this book talk. It is the first that I've done in Florida and in my institution at UCF, so thank you. The director, Yogesh Joshi, Dr. Yogesh Joshi, thank you so much for those words, and for starting us off with Aga Shahid Ali's brilliant poem. He was one of the first writers from Kashmir to actually start writing through literary expression and poetry, mainly about what was happening to his homeland. Thank you to Dr. Kirsten Haman, who's not here but has always been extremely supportive. A special thanks to Laila Chaco, my friend and colleague, who has been incredibly supportive for the last 2 years that I've been at UCF. I want to thank Arjun, I don't know where he is, for always being of incredible help and for lots of social media, technological, logistical help through the way. I wanted to start off with a quick note of thanks to my colleagues in the English department for all the support while I was working in the book, reading drafts, commenting, giving me most needful comments, and for being here today. Some of you are here today, so thank you. A special shout out to Leanne Gemeinhardt. I don't know if she's here today, but she was incredibly helpful procuring images for one section of the book from New York Times, so thank you. And last but not the least, to all my students who only inspire me to do the work that I do in and outside the classroom. Thank you so much for being here today as well. Thank you all. I want to begin by reading a short section from the introduction of the book, and then I will walk us through the larger narrative, the frameworks, and the theoretical terminologies that I use in different parts of the book in order to make a certain kind of argument about Kashmir and the literatures and film that have come up in the last 10 years or so. So this is a really new kind of work that was started off by Ali. Later on, Salman Rushdie was writing about Kashmir, and this is very fresh new Anglophone literatures on and from Kashmir. The introduction is titled Kashmir and the Optics of Violence. I dedicate this talk and the book to the people of Kashmir, and I'm starting off with words by a Kashmiri student. His name is Mir Umar. Quoting, "Whenever it rains in Kashmir, there is a feeling of loss, a sense of desolation. There is despair, inside and outside, but we tell tales to survive, stories of living and dead. We remember the forgotten, we talk to disappeared. There is a conversation of souls, a conversation between the dead and the living dead. Rain makes it happen, it makes it possible." End quote. And this particular excerpt, with full permission, was taken from Umar during the pandemic of 2020, and he was talking about how it was a double kind of erasure with the lockdown, but something that Kashmiris are privy to for years and years. They have been under some kinds of lockdown. The summer of 2013 was when I first visited Kashmir, and the origins of this book took seeds. I distinctly remember the presence of barbed wire at random spaces, everyday lives of Kashmiri people amid a pall of security and surveillance, and a sudden identity and car checks unraveling an eerie space. During a seemingly peaceful time in 2013, the presence of a military gaze in and around Srinagar spoke of a nation's anxiety and the creation of a conflict zone, and I came away asking, whose conflict zone is Kashmir? Thereafter, some poignant memories from the summer of 2013 in Srinagar haunted me often. A magnificent, luxuriant landscape ruptured in spaces with the muzzle of a rifle gun peeking through Chashme-Shahi and Pari Mahal Gardens, or an unspoken acceptance of barred communication with phones abruptly not functioning. Local people sharing food and warmth and opening their homes to a stranger within an increasing clampdown on mobilities, checking of identity cards, all pointing to the epigraph of a youth in Kashmir describing the feeling of desolation. Mir Umar's Facebook post from 2020, almost 6 months into the pandemic, reminded me of what Kashmiri subjects have undergone every day for years: a sense of loss and despair, a social death caught between aberrant and manifold structures of violence and power, and navigating life in such a liminality of living and dead. Rain does not come as a source of regeneration in life, it heightens the blurry zones that remind Kashmiri people that are caught in a space of no exit, a space determined by status determinations of life and death. What Umar's wrenching post also points to is the importance of stories that Kashmiris tell to each other and to the world when possibilities of speaking and telling are heavily marred by literally switching off a whole region of millions of people from the rest of the world. Shortly before the beginning of the pandemic, the date of August 5th, 2019, saw a total blackout and siege of Kashmir with the revocation of Article 370 by the Indian nation state, an article that was recognized by the Constitution denoting Kashmir as the conflict zone status during the tribal invasion of Kashmir from Pakistan. Special provisions toward quasi-autonomy were granted after the problematic circumstances of the 1947 partition, when the arbitrary delineation of the border between India and Pakistan occurred. This was not the first time that a communication blackout like this had occurred in Kashmir. There have been several other times when the state has shut down internet and communication in the entire population, hurting economy and livelihoods. Only in 2019 alone, prior to the longest blackout of 18 months, there were already 59 blackouts that amounted to more than one blackout per week in Kashmir for the first 30 weeks of the year. Saveer Kaul, a noted Kashmiri cultural critic and historian, also observes that what happened in 2019, especially the internet blockade, had been rehearsed for 30 years now by every government in the Indian state that has come to power, along with people in political power in Kashmir who have suspended civic rights, telecommunications, whenever they wanted. The historic blackout of 2019 has been the longest and strictest, in which almost 8 million people were alienated from the rest of the world without phone access, internet, and under heavy curfew conditions. I'm going to stop reading the book here.